Hi, thanks for joining me in my study. Actually, I haven't been in my study much this week. Rather, after Labor Day, I've devoted this week primarily to various recording projects. On Tuesday, I sat for an interview with a Christian filmmaker who is filming a series of short videos presenting an apologetic for the Christian faith. And the very first of these will be on the absurdity of life without God. I'm convinced that if atheism is true, that is to say, if God does not exist, then ultimately life is absurd. I've been greatly influenced in my thinking on this subject by the atheistic French existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre. I analyze the absurdity of life in terms of three factors. Life is without ultimate meaning, without ultimate value, and without ultimate purpose. Meaning has to do with significance, why something matters. And it seems to me that if everything ultimately ends in death, even the entire universe going into oblivion, then this robs anything and everything we do of any ultimate significance. Sure, the things that we do and say may have relative significance with respect to other events, but if all of the events are ultimately meaningless, then there's no significance in influencing any of them. And according to modern science, the universe, as it expands, will grow colder and colder. Eventually, all the stars will burn out, the galaxies themselves will disintegrate. Finally, there will be no light at all, there will be no heat, there will be no life, only the dead stars and particles expanding into the infinite darkness. And it seems to me that since everything ends up the same, ultimately our lives are therefore without significance. Moreover, if there is no God to serve as an absolute standard of moral values and right and wrong, then that means that moral values are just either expressions of personal taste or else they're the byproducts of biological evolution and social conditioning. In either case, that means that life is ultimately without any objective moral value. Moral values are just illusions of human beings who have evolved relatively recently on this obscure planet. And finally, I think it's evident that neither would there be any ultimate purpose in life if God does not exist. If the end of everything is a cold, dark grave in the recesses of outer space, then ultimately there is no reason, there is no purpose for humanity or for our existence as individuals. So I believe that atheism really presents us with a very grim picture. If God does not exist, then life is ultimately without meaning, value, or purpose. And this completely undercuts the sort of whatever attitude that so many contemporary students have about the existence of God. On the contrary, in light of these considerations, it shows that the existence of God is the most important question that a human being can ask. And therefore, we must face this question honestly and seriously. Yesterday evening, Kevin Harris arrived in town. And for the remainder of this week, I'm going to be involved in recording Reasonable Faith podcasts with Kevin. He always comes well prepared with a whole retinue of questions that we can talk about, and I'm looking forward to our discussions and hope that you'll find them interesting when they eventually appear as our Reasonable Faith podcasts.